The East and West in one evening. It's great.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
So let me just hello everybody. Welcome to the Eat Better Food podcast today. I'm your host, Ken Coonahan. I'm excited to be sharing some insights on why we believe that health, longevity begins with the food we eat. The goal of the podcast will be to inspire, educate, enable folks to live a healthier, happier life and do it affordably. My wife and I have been on this journey for over 10 years, and it's like a daily thing. Kind of continue to work on it. So in this episode, we're grateful to have Doug Katz join us. Thanks again, Doug.
Sure.
My wife and I have known Doug for, I don't know, over a dozen years, maybe longer. When you get older, time just kind of changes. So for the past 25 years, Doug has been spreading real joy through his Food at Fire, now Amba and Zhug, to name a few of his signature restaurants. His passion for using fresh, high-quality ingredients with integrity is what drew my wife and I to initially dine at Fire many years ago. The food is always outstanding, especially the mushroom arugula salad, which is my favorite. Crispy chicken livers, tandoor pork chop, kind of always my go-tos. So Doug has always greeted us with a smile, as he's doing right here today, and does so whenever we see him. He introduced us to Rising Star Coffee when they first opened. That's kind of how we discovered Rising Star, and then Miller grass-fed beef that we still use today to get our healthy grass-fed meats from. So still stay in touch with Aaron. In this episode, we'll explore Doug himself in more detail and understand some of his new endeavors, maybe, and maybe hear a little bit about a future project.
Great.
So Doug, we're going to be talking a lot about food, health, longevity, but first let's start with, what did you have for breakfast today?
So this is an unusual day. Usually I start on a Saturday with yoga, and then I come home and I walk my dog.
Okay.
And then I go I would say it's religiously on Saturdays that I go to Juneberry. And Juneberry is one of my favorite breakfast spots. And
one of ours too.
And I love Karen Small, and I get this amazing breakfast salad, which has eggs and bacon and just lettuce and great dressing and vegetables. And I happened to skip yoga today because my favorite teacher is out of town. So I just went to Juneberry and had breakfast. Long answer. And I also made my own coffee, which I do when I have time in my Mocha Master at home, which is an amazing coffee maker that makes almost that pour over style coffee. And I have just my favorite coffees. I had a Brazil single origin coffee this morning.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Never heard of Mocha Master before.
Oh, Mocha Master is one of the best. And
I'll have to check that
definitely
out.
check it out. It looks sort of laboratory-like, and I weigh out my coffee and weigh out my water, and I put it in there, and it's a fun chef cup of coffee.
I'll have to check it out. We'll have to put that in the notes for the podcast
For sure.
too.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
You must get to Juneberry early, because whenever Kim and I go on a Saturday, it's like a 45-minute wait.
It is a long wait, and I actually brought my coffee, and they said an hour today, but I think it was only like 35 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I always am willing to wait. I know that I'm going to have to wait, so luckily down the road, even though I make my own coffee, there's a great shop called Duck Rabbit.
I've been to Duck Rabbit.
And I go down to Duck Rabbit and I hang out there and sometimes get another coffee because they have great coffee, and then I'll go back.
It's a good strategy. I like Duck Rabbit coffee too.
Yes. Cal is great.
So what would you say you've been doing this for a long time? I know you've been doing it since you were much younger. What's your favorite dish?
So I can't say that I have a favorite dish. I love ingredients, and I love the seasons, and I love sort of finding just great products. And so like I love going to the grocery store and shopping for a day or two. I never go and shop for the week. I go and I look, and I can spend 3 hours at the grocery store, and I just love seeing what looks amazing. So roast chicken just comes to mind when you ask me what's my favorite dish, and I do typically crave roast chicken. I love sort of the process of seasoning and, maybe brushing like a little salt and pepper and doing a little olive oil, or even melting butter, or even taking tahini and coating the chicken skin and then roasting it in the oven, and then just the smell that it creates. And I love putting herbs in my chicken and some garlic, and And I just honestly love some salad, and I take that chicken out of the oven, and I just love to pull the chicken off and eat the salad with the chicken, and I tend to just snack on the chicken like for a couple days, and then it's gone. So.
Nice. You're making me hungry. I just ate lunch. Very nice. I've never heard of tahini on a chicken before, though. That I've never tried.
So one thing I'm super passionate about, and it came from sort of my healthy eating program these days, is there's a local company called Soko Tahini, and so Donna Harari is the owner. It's a woman-owned company, and she introduced me to the most amazing stone ground tahini, and so tahini is super special because when you mix tahini with a liquid, it gets very creamy and rich, and you don't need the dairy, and you don't need all of the other things that make rich food rich a lot of times. So if you just take tahini, say, and pickle juice, for instance, and you just stir it together in 40 seconds, you have this really rich, creamy, pickle almost juice. Ranch dressing textured thing. And the pickle juice adds acidity to the really rich, fatty tahini.
Interesting.
And if you take that mixture and you coat that on your chicken, you have this great acidity and fat that then when it's baked, it tenderizes the chicken. It adds an amazing sort of nuttiness and flavor to it. And so I love using the artisanal tahini or the date tahini that they make and coating the chicken with it.
Where can you find that tahini? I've seen you on Facebook kind of talking about that, but I'm not sure.
So they sell it at Heinen's. Okay. They sell it through their website at eatsoko.com.
Okay.
They have it at Market District and several other sort of national locations. I think online services. Purple Carrot, I think, is one that sells it.
Okay.
Yeah, really great product. Yeah.
So what would you say your favorite grocery store is in Cleveland?
I love Heinen's. I mean, I grew up I lived in Shaker. I grew up at the Green Road Heinen's. Would go with, when I was 7, I knew I was going to be a chef. So one of my favorite things was to go to the grocery store. I used to love Junta's, which was one of the Rigo, Russo, and that was at Fairmount Circle. And I used to go there and just loved shopping. And but Heinen's really, it was this mammoth store. As I remember it, had this sort of, curved roof. It just, like when you walk in, just felt like this mecca. And so to go through the produce area and to go through all the departments, I just loved shopping. But so Heinen's holds a special place. But really, it's hard to say. I love grocery stores, and I love farmers markets more than anything too. So I think I'd like a farmer's market better than a grocery store, but I don't know. Well, I love Whole Foods too.
We're gonna have one of your suggestions on. Donita's agreed to be on the podcast.
Oh,
too.
good.
Yeah, Shaker Square Farmers Market, North Union Farmers Markets.
Love Donita.
Yeah,
good.
Very nice person.
Yes.
So if you were deserted on a desert island, and you had a choice between Wi-Fi, a shower, and your roasted chicken, what would you pick?
Let's see. Wi-Fi, a shower, or a roast chicken. I feel like I would... Well, I picked the Wi-Fi so that I could get off the island, I think. But, and I think, I would just go in the water, so I wouldn't need the shower. And the roast chicken, I sort of am on an island. I want the local food. I don't want the chicken. I want the fish. I want to figure out how am I going to get the fish out of that ocean or wherever I am.
Did not expect that answer.
Yeah.
Right back to local.
That's right.
You're on an island and you're right back to local.
Right. I'm going to explore that place and see what's on that island. Yeah.
Grab a couple coconuts and fish the waters. That's pretty cool. Okay.
And hopefully I don't poison myself and end up living there forever.
Well, I think you're pretty familiar with food. I don't think you do that. So.
Yeah, and I'm a good fire starter.
You're a good fire starter?
I guess, I don't know. I'd have to figure that out, though. I'd have to, what is it called?
rub the sticks
together.
Yeah.
I'd have to figure that. Or 2 stones. Hopefully there's some stones.
Or some stones.
Yeah. Or shells. Or
whatever works.
Or the sunlight. Maybe there's enough sun that'll spark my fire.
Yeah. Maybe use your glasses.
Yeah. Perfect.
There you go.
That was Yeah.
So I guess you've kind of already started to do that, but what's your philosophy on food just in general? I mean, it's integral to health and longevity. I know you're very emotional about what you said, kind of, shopping in grocery stores, local markets. We just talked about local food on deserted island, desert island. So what kind of is general your philosophy on food, I guess?
To me, I think it's all about the ingredients. I was raised in a household where my mom loved cooking and she really cared about the ingredients, and she had a special place to go get the meat and the fish, and she had a place to get the produce, and she had a relationship with all of these grocers. I mean, Chandler and Rudd was one that we used to go to, and I mean, they used to wrap each vegetable in its own sort of package, and they even delivered to people's homes. And so I remember her on the phone talking to Freddie, who was the owner, talking about what she wanted, and she wanted this pepper, and she'd ask him what the best things were. But then also going to that shop and seeing what they had was amazing. But there was always a care for the ingredients. And my dad was a gardener, even though we had a very small sort of yard. He had maybe a 4-foot by 8-foot garden, and he was out there every weekend during the entire, from April until October. And he even created this this watering system that helped him, water this. But he would grow cucumbers and peppers and basil, and so it really inspired, I think, me to care about these ingredients. And so when you're raised that way, you have this, I don't know, an innate sort of, I think you have a problem sort of living in the normal world because you just think that's what everyone does and that's what everything is about. And you realize that it isn't always. And so it created, for me, sometimes I wouldn't eat because I didn't want the food that I saw, because I knew it wasn't the quality that my parents, raised me on. And so I really think ingredients are everything. It tells the story of your food. It's what you start with. It's, if you don't have good ingredients, there's no way you're going to make a good dish.
Right.
And so it's, everything to me, I would say.
So you had it from your parents. I had it from my grandparents and my great-grandparents. Kind of that experience with the garden, making their own food, and they would can, and so. And
even that, like you talk, my grandmother, I can hear her. She didn't know any culinary. She didn't know, at culinary school, I learned techniques and I learned these proper names for things. But I think of my grandmother cooking at home, and when she would make green beans, she would talk about going to get the green beans at this store and how she would, break the ends, and she'd put them, she would blanch them. She would boil water, salt the water, put them in, and she didn't know what blanching was. She just knew that she brought this, she'd boil the water and do the salt, and then she'd talk about how tender these green beans were, and last week they weren't so tender, and a month before she remembers having them and they were much more tender than either of these. And just thinking of that she even, could talk that way, or think about, that in July the green beans were perfect, but then in January they were a little tougher. It just sort of teaches you things, that there is a difference.
Yeah, you got to respect the seasons. I mean,
yes. Yeah. And she cared, and you'd sit at the table talking about the food. You didn't really talk about other things. You just talked about what you were eating and how great it was, or how tender her cake was, or how, the meringue on her lemon pies was the best she'd made, or the lemon itself in the pie was like the best, so.
Oh, for me growing up, my grandmother, she could not make anything that tasted bad.
Oh.
It always was.
Isn't that
outstanding?
And I have to say that you have to think that they were in touch with their ingredients, and they were in touch with their kitchens and what they produced, and had the expertise doing it daily.
Yeah, my grandma, she would taste stuff like 50 times before she served it. I mean, she just constantly to make sure the ingredients were right and everything tasted good.
Yes.
So that was just a ritual.
Unfortunately, it's gotten more lost in our world as we evolve. But
absolutely. So what do you, inspiration for new dishes in your restaurants? So where do you get inspiration from for new dishes?
So I think it's my history with food. I think it's also just happenstance, I think. I had a restaurant called Fire. We had a an open kitchen. We had this, and my whole mentality behind fire was farm to table, was farmers market food that we were putting on plates. But I happened to have a tandoor oven in my kitchen at fire, and that tandoor oven was our campfire. It was we would light it every day. It was wood fired. We'd buy our wood from the farmers market. We knew Ray, who was the wood guy, and we were passionate about lighting that fire because of knowing Ray and knowing where that all came from, but it didn't have any Indian inspiration to it. It was really just this clay oven that happened to be from Northeast Ohio also, which is an interesting story. But because of that oven, my kids were maybe 4 years old, and we had a parent night at one of the parents' house. It happened to be an Indian family. Had us over, made the most amazing Indian food, and I said to my friend Radhika, who had us over, that I have this tandoor oven at my restaurant. I've never used it for Indian cooking. We make our own naan bread, but other than that, we don't use it for Indian. Could you teach me how to make traditional Indian food? She said, oh, she'd love to, and so we ended up planning this event for about 20 some people, and she helped me create a menu and a prep list and all of this, and it ended up that we started to promote the meal, and we ended up doing 120 people instead of 20. And she was scared to death because she had never cooked in a commercial kitchen. But I said my team and I would really make it happen. And so, as I say, happenstance, I don't think I would have ever explored Indian had I not met Radhika. Over the years, we ended up doing about 6 Indian dinners. It was so inspiring. It was so amazing for our team. When I buy from the farmer's market, another story, you buy the mushrooms and the wood and the cheese and all, and these people are coming to your back door delivering, and all the cooks in the kitchen get to have conversations with these people. These are the inspirations that guide your menu and guide your food. And so when I think of my relationship with Radhika, being able to transform our kitchen and make it an Indian kitchen, going to India and visiting her now that she moved back, all of those things have inspired where I go with my menus and with my food. Had I not met her, I may not have had a more world influence, but I may have had more of just this local influence. But at Fire, we really explored world cuisine. We had a Turkish dinner. We had, South American inspirations. And I even launched a spice company after this. And so all of those things that just happened by chance really, helped me create new food as I move forward. So I can't tell you in 5 years what I'll be doing with food, but I know right now our focus is on taking foods from around the world and bringing them to Cleveland, because I crave them and I want them for myself, but I also want to show other people how great these foods can be. And if you haven't experienced it, we want to do it in a new way that fuses sort of our local food, our local culture with world cuisine. And it only happened because of my life and living and who I come across and meet, and I could have taken many directions, but that just happens to be our story or my current focus.
So continuing that thread, so how did that Fire lead into Zhug and now Amba?
So at Fire, because of that Indian inspiration and the success of these types of things, I think in the back of my mind I always had an interest in opening restaurants that were maybe a little bit different. Fire, focusing on farm to table food, after about, it was open for 20 years, but after about 15 years of doing that, you sort of want to think, okay, what's next? And I did have a great catering business. The catering business, you don't do parties Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so what are we going to do with our time? I thought, I was at home one morning and I was cooking, and I was actually making a curry dish, and I added the spices to the onions and the garlic, and I thought to myself, every time a guest at my restaurant asks me how to make this and they want my recipe for this and they want me to send it to them, I thought to myself, what people want at home is they want their kitchen to be this active, fun, warm, exciting place. And what makes it happen is when you saute the onions and you add the spice and you smell this aroma, you're cooking.
Yes.
When you're making your coffee and you smell that aroma, it's like it makes you want to be in that kitchen and wants. So those are the things that have guided where I go. And so the spices happened to be an idea. I created this little box. It was called Fire Spice Company. We toasted and ground spices, put them in boxes. with recipes. Those that idea was stupid because you have to sell so many of these boxes in order to make it work, and you only sell these at holiday shows, and the rest of the year it's sort of quiet. In my restaurant, I sold a few, but not enough to make it worth it.
I bought a few.
Oh, good. But what it taught me is that the most popular ones were the sort of the Middle Eastern Mediterranean, the South American, and the Indian. And that just happened to be my experience. So that's what I decided to focus on. And the first inspiration was the Middle Eastern Mediterranean. Our harissa chicken was like a really popular Moroccan chicken box. So I sort of decided that I found this space in Cleveland Heights that was really awesome, and I thought, what could I put there? And I thought this should be this little cool Mediterranean meze bar. And so my business partner and I went to Israel. We spent a week there going to about 80 restaurants. I had been to Israel before, but I knew that was sort of the inspiration, and I wanted to introduce him to that because I couldn't do this by myself. He had to have a good sense of what does the beverage program look like? How does it feel when you're in Israel and experiencing this type of culture? And so when we did that, we didn't know for sure that that's what we were going to do. We had to experience that. We came back, we said, this is exactly what we want to do at this space, because we could make this feel like a restaurant from Tel Aviv. We could make it feel like we were bringing it to life for people, and we were bringing it to Cleveland. So that was what we did first. And so Zhug opened in November 2019 and became this shareable food experience, which was just amazing. That's where we went with it. I had always in the back of my mind also wanted to do an Indian cocktail lounge, but had not really thought that would come to fruition. And unfortunately, March 2020, the pandemic hit. We made a really tough decision to close my flagship Fire after 20 years for many reasons. But that allowed us to use our catering commissary, which was also shut down because of the pandemic. It allowed us to use that for research and development on new world cuisine restaurant concepts that we wanted to eventually launch, and we were able to run them as ghost kitchens. Ghost kitchens are where you're able to create almost a restaurant in a catering kitchen, and people can come up and do takeout and delivery only. They can't eat in the restaurant. So that's what we did there, and that's how Amba really was able to launch, and that's my Indian inspired place. So right now I have Zhug and I have Amba. I'll also say I'm the chef partner at Provenance at the Cleveland Museum of Art, and that taught me a lot about world cuisine too, because the collection is so world influenced, and we would often create menus around Indian or Peruvian or African, or like it could be a French. Any of the exhibitions really help guide us to these different cultures, and we explore those, and so that inspired what I have today, which is Zhug and Amba.
Oh, yeah. Very nice. Yeah. Great restaurants.
Thanks.
I've eaten both of them many times.
Oh, thanks.
So they both also have, like, from a design standpoint, they both have like a community feel to them, both of those restaurants. I mean, was there some thought of, was that based on your trip to Israel, or kind of how did that come about, I guess?
I think the sharing food definitely helps that, and the vibe is more bar with great food, and I think that helps. But I also think we have a music that's really spirited and on the louder side, and we have the sharing of plates and your food. It's just a really high energy experience. But I will tell you that our designer Kelly Schaefer, who helps us with our restaurants, we all talk about how important it is to make everyone feel like they're part of this experience. And to me, the spaces I look for often help. The first thing we do is, how do we bring everyone together? And it often is, even from an architectural standpoint, creating almost like a banquette on the outside of the room that allows you to face in and share together. You sort of create the architecture so that it helps enhance that feel. So at Amba, even though it's dark and loud, there is this feeling of you're doing this together in this room, because there's this, you're encapsulated in this place, and the kitchen's here, and you can see the excitement there. It's sort of like the stage, and then you have this room that you feel like you're connected to everyone. And I think at Zhug the same way.
I would agree, yeah.
And I feel like that's such an important thing. And not having little cubicles or little what do they call the office? Yeah, I guess that's a cubicle.
Cubicle, yeah.
Or the where you have the half walls. Is that cubicle? I don't know.
Cubicles,
Yeah, cubicles.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We try not to do that.
I hate that anyway.
Yeah,
So.
that's
Coming
right.
from corporate America.
That's right.
So why do you think your restaurants have been so successful? I know you've had a couple of people with you for a long time, Cameron and Todd. So I mean, the restaurant industry is famous for a lot of turnover of restaurants and a lot of turnover of people in restaurants. So why do you think you've been fortunate?
I think I'm fortunate with the people that I have, and you named two of them, and I feel like I've had so many over the years. I feel like I'm a humble chef that has high expectations, that sort of sticks to what I believe in, and I think I've been lucky to find people that are, that care about that. And so having the 20 years at Fire, I was really able to, I guess, hone my management skills to a certain level where I was able to keep people, because I certainly didn't do that for the first 10 years. I was I wouldn't say I was a yeller chef, I wasn't, but I was highly emotional. Everything I did was just, the food had to be, I had a perfectionist attitude, which I still do, but I just think you sort of, you do that and you go through a lot of people who are not interested in that and who do not want to be guided that way. But I did find a core group of people who have stayed with me. Cameron's been with me 17 years. Todd's been 12 years. Phoebe, who's our director of operations, worked for me when she was 18. So I'm lucky to have some really great anchors in my business that allow that. But I also think that I'm there and I'm connected and I care so much about the guest and about the experience, and I'm a detail person, so I really see all of the things that are wrong. I don't see so much about what's right, unfortunately, and I'm always sort of nitpicking, and though I'm not in the kitchen day to day anymore, I'm breathing down Cameron's neck every minute, talking to him about this or that or everything, and he's just someone who can put up with that. So I'm just lucky to have a team that knows how much I care, but I'm also humble, I'm friendly, I'm nice, I love all of my people. I feel like, too, we're lucky in Cleveland because we're a smaller community where you can connect with people. And I feel like I could never have done this in a bigger city where there wasn't the support of developers and the support of your community and sort of a way to break through like you can in Cleveland. I think other cities just are too big and there's too much going on and you can't always make that happen. So I'm lucky that it happened for me in Cleveland too.
Very nice. Yeah, I know some of the bigger cities, New York, LA, Boston. 6 months and the turnover is just incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the real estate is so expensive.
Yeah, the real estate too is extremely expensive.
Yeah. And the food and the purveyors. There's just so much. It's like, do you want to? I think of like an amusement park, and it's like everyone wants to go on Saturday, and it's slammed, and you're in line for 3 hours, and you hate it, but all you want to do is go there. It's like to be in Cleveland, you have so many opportunities. You're just this maybe big fish in a small pond sort of thing, and it allows you to do so much more and have a great quality of life. And so I've been just lucky to be here, I think, too.
And you get access to a lot of fresh product very close to home. It's not...
Yes, we have the seasons that people take for granted, too. Like most not to badmouth the Southwest or to badmouth certain areas, but it's like, we are lucky. We have 4 seasons. We have the most, the ability to grow such diversity in our food and to make cheeses and meats and get maple syrup and honey and have all the local produce all, different times of year. And with climate change, it can only get better where we live, I think, too.
So what would you say the favorite part and least favorite part of your job is today?
So my favorite part is definitely, I'm an extrovert. I love interacting with the guest. I love when things run well and the food looks great and people are happy on my team and in the restaurants and things are buzzing. I think, and I also don't mind problem solving. Like if there's issues that happen, I do sort of enjoy the challenges of some of those things, whether it's I don't enjoy a power outage, but I love getting through it and knowing that I can handle some things that are just difficult. The things I don't like are really when people question our, I'm the customer facing person. I'm the chief marketing officer, I would say. I'm the one who answers all of our reviews and all of and guest concerns. And I think where I have the biggest trouble is I think we're such a reputable company that cares so much about our what we've created and what we do every day. And when someone approaches us and thinks that we don't care, or approaches us in a way that sets us as a defender, or of what we do or something, it's hard, because I feel like we are just such genuine community people, and it's hard. The hardest thing is when someone questions where our focus is, or our ethics, or our, and I feel like that just I just wish it was so clear to people that we really care so much, and we're not trying to do something to you to make your experience bad, or we didn't do this to try and screw you, or and I think that those types of experiences make it hard, because then I get so emotional inside. I can't always address that problem in the most professional way. So that's the hardest thing I have. And I have many stories over the years where someone has said something to me, and it's sort of set me off as that chef, my early years as a chef, and I might actually tell them that they don't know who we are, and I'm not sure I want them to come back to my restaurant. So those are times where I feel like, those are the toughest times, because then I'm thinking of that for 3 days and how I should never have said that.
Well, anybody that knows you and has been to your restaurants, I mean, in general, you've got a smile on your face every time I see you.
Yes.
So.
And I do love it. I'll tell a little story too. Zach Brule was one of my first bosses.
Okay.
And when I was 14 or 15 years old. And like most chefs, they tell you you're crazy. Why would you ever want to be in this business? And and every day he would remind me, are you sure you want to do this? Because look at what just happened. Why would you want to deal with this? And I feel like even through that, and even through every chef I've had who's told me the same thing, I still to this day at 53 would never want to do anything else. And I'm just lucky that it's been a career that's been so nurturing to me and not so debilitating, which it could be.
And Zach is still in business too.
Yes, that's right. And I'm not sure if he has the same thought, or he just feels stuck in it. I'm not sure, but he has a smile on his face a lot of times.
Maybe I'll get him on the podcast and ask him.
That's right.
So what would you say your proudest accomplishment is over the last, I guess that'd be 46 years?
I would say at this point, and it's changed over the years, but I have twins. They're boy-girl twins, 20 years old. And to see them and their interest in life and what they, how they've evolved as humans, it's the most fulfilling thing to me, because I just love that they're these young adults that really, without knowing whether I instilled certain things that I find important, I feel like, in our discussions, my son, it has a film, interest in film, and I see so much of what I grew up passionate about, and I see his passion for his career, and I feel so lucky to have a son who cares so much about what he does, and to know that the passion and the pride and the joy and the optimism and all of that he has, he doesn't realize right now, but that's going to guide his life, and it's going to make his life so much better and more fulfilled for him. And so I'm so happy if I was able to impact that and give him that. And same with my daughter, just her joy for friendships and life and social, and she's in Vermont and she loves snowboarding, and she just seeing the young adults they've become, and just her just joy for her daily life too. I just feel like that's what I think my hard work and my joy for my career gave them an opportunity to see that and to live that for themselves. So I think that's probably the most.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And there's so many other things I could say within my business that I'm proud of, but those are certainly.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of my kids.
Yeah. I would hope so.
So recent travels, you've kind of been traveling a little bit of the world, I know,
Mhm.
with Todd and Cameron. Why did you pick those locations? What did you learn?
Mhm.
What are some of your thoughts around the food? Because I travel as well, and the food in other countries is always different but amazing, in my opinion.
So travel to me is the most important. To me, it's our continuing education. If we don't get out, if we don't read, if we don't explore the world, we're not learning what's out there. And we could stay in our little bubble and think everything's fine. But if when you travel, you're able to see culture and you're able to see so much. So I wish I could travel all the time, but we choose based on sort of what's on our agenda. So like when I went to India, I was thinking of what I wanted to do next and how it impacts fire. And I've been lucky to go to Turkey, and I've been lucky to go to Spain and to France and to Italy and to Colombia and to Mexico City. And it really, we choose based on what projects we're working on. And so we were really excited to open a restaurant called Chimi, which is short for chimichurri, which is it's an Argentinian herb relish that you put on meats and fish. And so we had planned to go to Peru last year to explore some of the cuisine of Peru because we wanted to open this South American inspired restaurant. Unfortunately, the political unrest in Peru at that time, we had to cancel the trip, and we changed it, and we ended up going to Mexico City and Colombia instead, and had the most incredible trip there too. And it inspired us to change direction a little bit, and we thought, oh, maybe we'll open a shop where we make our own tortillas, our corn tortillas, and make it more, so these were discussions that we had on our travels, but it ended up that and we decided, because we had to cancel Peru last year, we're going to do that this February.
Okay.
Well, it ends up now that we decided that we're going to pivot and not do Chimi because we didn't find the space this year that we wanted. We do have another project that I can't really tell you about yet.
I want to share that with our listeners.
And maybe we could add that as an addendum to this episode, because it's something that I'll be able to say maybe in 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
So we'll see when this happens. Maybe you could tell people. But it's something that is not going to be South American inspired. It's going to be more American regional in focus. And so now our travel, we're sort of thinking, okay, we want to do a trip to New York or to LA or to San Francisco and just, have a 5-day, 6-day trip to explore more restaurant culture, what's happening in these big cities, and sort of see what we're envisioning in other locations and seeing what other people are doing in that way. So I think travel for us, it's really like going to the library, and it's sort of thinking what's at top of our mind and what are we going to read next. That's sort of how we decide to travel.
Cool library.
Yes, right? And to me, I never want to stop traveling, and I just feel like that's my inspiration, and that's what I can bring to my team, and that's, and without exploring, without seeing what's out there, you just sort of limit yourself.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to do that? I mean, you talked about when you were 7, but why? And you talked about Zach, and he kind of discouraged you. And my daughter wanted to be a chef at one point, but she talked to so many chefs that did what Zach did, and she finally said, I'm not going to do that. So she's not a chef.
Yeah.
She's an accountant. So.
And you're saying, remind me the question? Sorry.
So why did you, what inspired you to want to ever get into this business, I guess?
So I think that I've had so many, my life has been about food. I've had challenges with food. I lost 60 pounds in the last 7 years, and I've always had trouble with my diet, and I had trouble socially growing up, and I didn't like sports, and I had this influence from my parents and all these happy, joyful things, but I also had a lot of this negativity around food and about body and diet and all of these things that I think, in a way, positively and negatively guided me to this career. I was so excited and loved food, and I felt like it was the only thing. I always knew at 7 years old, I knew I was going to be a chef. I always said I was going to be a chef. So I feel like there was something my parents instilled in me that gave me a comfort and a warmth around food, that even though I had trouble with food, I knew that it was something that nurtured me, and I loved giving people that, the food that I was able to cook, and I loved interacting with people who ate food, and going to restaurants and working in restaurants. Everything about it I just loved. But so I don't know that I ever had any other option for my life. Like, no one could have ever talked me out of it, I don't think. And it was one of those things that the more people told me how difficult it was, the more I wanted to do it. And I'm not sure I'm that type of person when it comes to like doing the cold plunge in Lake Erie in February or something like that. But for a lot of things, if someone tells me you can't do it, I want to prove that I can. So I love that about this business, that I've been able to be successful. I can't tell you, I was too naive when I opened my first restaurant to know how stupid it was to do what I did, but luckily it worked out. But
I would say it suits you well.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and I don't think I had another choice, but it's been so no one could have ever talked me out of it, for sure. Does that answer you?
Yeah, absolutely. So what are your thoughts on longevity? I mean, you're getting older. I feel much older. Do you think about getting older? Do you think about, I don't know, either changes in menu? You talked about yoga a little bit, so maybe that plays into that, but just what are your thoughts in that area?
Well, I'll start with diet and exercise and all of that, and I think that for me, the biggest challenges as being a chef is, when do you get out of the kitchen? As a chef, you feel like you have to prove something to everyone, your line cooks, your staff, your customers, and you always have to grow. And I think that there's always this feeling of like, if you don't work 14, 15, 16 hours a day, if you're not physically working harder than the person next to you, that's sort of what you learn in culinary school. That's what you learn in kitchens. And so you learn to like just deplete yourself and give it everything you have to everyone else. And I think that that's something that the pandemic helped me learn, that Fire was my dream restaurant, but the amount of time and effort and what I put into it certainly was worth it, and I loved it, but it was something that taught me that that's not necessarily a healthy way to live. And when that ended, I was already on a journey to eat healthier and to exercise, and I find joy in exercise, and I love eating healthy. I know how I feel when I eat healthy food, and for me, healthy food is different than someone else, but I love eating real food, and I love, I like staying away from sugar and gluten, and but I love eating just really, real delicious food. So
it tastes better.
Yes.
Whole food tastes better.
Yes.
I mean, it's just...
Yeah, and I think that has given me I have a lot of energy anyway, but I love walking, I love yoga, I love biking, I love being outdoors, I love skiing and snowboarding. I'm just lucky that I love these things, and I love eating healthy, and so I feel like that gives me the longevity to start with. But I also think that I've learned to shed some of these guilty feelings I have being in the business that I'm in. And at 53, my dad taught me not only about loving food, but he also taught me, he was a workaholic, and he's 86, and he wishes he still could be a doctor working in a hospital. No one will hire him at this point. But he taught me to be a workaholic. And so in the back of my mind, all I think about is him telling me at 53, like, God, you're like not working hard enough, and you're not doing this. And I've let that go. And I've now I'm living a life where I have a great dog, and I love walking him, and I love experiencing where I live, which is like right by the water. And I love going to my restaurants. And I'm lucky that I've developed a team that supports the life that I can have for myself, which I don't think everyone's lucky enough to do. But the longevity to me is that I'm able to guide this team, but it is a team, and we're growing, and we're giving more responsibility to team members, and that's where the longevity is created. And I feel like I'm retired right now, because when I think of working overnights at the hotel, that I worked at in my first job, and then doing employee meal for hundreds of employees, and I think of doing that weekly, and then living, just the jobs that you have and the hard work that you put in, that's over for me, because now I'm doing everything I love, which is talking to guests. I bust tables, I polish glassware with the team. I'm able to create the values and the morals for the team, and I'm able to talk to all my employees, talk to all the guests. I'm able to go to this restaurant when I want and this restaurant when I want, and I'm able to do other projects like work at the art museum and work at with Morrison Healthcare and do all these side projects, because I just have developed a team that allows me to spread out the responsibilities, and I love everyone I work with, so I can't imagine a better situation for longevity, and we're gonna grow.
Nice. Well, and you had to to get where you are today, you had to kind of take that journey to get there. I mean, you couldn't have just at 20 years old said, I'm going to be a chef owner and open up a couple of restaurants and work with the clinic and
Yes.
the art museum. It just doesn't happen that way.
No, and you can't be scared either. I always want to challenge myself, and I always want to add more to my plate. And I think longevity is about that too. You can't just sort of sit and, had I just opened fire and it was 24 years old today, I think I would not have the longevity I have today, knowing that the pandemic happened and we had to pivot and we had to do all these things that we had to do. So challenging yourself always and fulfilling, and I think that provides the longevity, keeps your mind going and body going.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. So I just have a couple more questions here, but if you had this is kind of a little bit out there, but if you had the attention of the world for 5 minutes, what would you say?
It's really the things I learned in kindergarten is what I would say. I feel like that if I had the attention of the world, what I would say is that if everyone took 3 deep breaths and you sort of thought about where you were and what was happening at that moment in time, and you really thought about your ideal family situation or your ideal sort of feeling inside, and sort of projecting kindness and sharing kindness and being a friend and living with joy and optimism, and I think these are the things I would just sort of want to, at times you sort of just want to stop everything, and you sort of want everyone to look and say, like sort of see what's happening, and does it really have to happen, and if we really looked in ourselves and looked at what would our ideal be at that moment, that I sort of would want to stop everyone, maybe read something and say, so that everyone could sort of take that deep breath, and I think the next 10 minutes would be much better if we did that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Take the phone away, take the computer away, and just kind of take a couple breaths
and allow yourself to enjoy the light and the things that are great.
Yeah.
Someone said to me, he's a leader in Cleveland, and he's been a leader in many places in the world, and he said to me that as a leader, it's very lonely, that there aren't many people to share your daily joy with. And he said that his point in the day is like when he wakes up, he wants to take droplets and share joy with everyone he comes in contact with throughout the day, because that just then gives him that joy. And so if he can walk a kid across the street who's going to school, or if he can stop for the person at the stop sign to do this, or if he can help someone put their bags in their car, or if he can say something that it's just gives someone joy for that minute, or those are the things that when he goes to sleep at night, he looks back and he then lives a much happier, joyful life. And I feel like I think of that all the time and try to spread that joy, because I think there's so many things that make our lives difficult, and if you just remember that, I think, and keep that in your mind, I think that just would helps you get through so much.
A little bit of kindness goes a long way.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to share? I know we're going to talk, you brought a recipe, I hope.
Yes.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I would say just that I'm lucky. Early on in my tenure at Fire, the art museum was doing a huge renovation, and it was something down the street from my restaurant Fire, and I was lucky to become the chef partner at Provenance. And
which is a fantastic restaurant.
oh, thank you. And I have an amazing team there, and that taught me so much too about longevity. It taught me, when I first started there 11 years ago, I was a younger chef, and I certainly thought like I have to control everything, and it all has to be my vision and all of this. And what I learned quickly was that you can have all of these sort of goals and strategies, but until you work with the team and you're going to have these hard, these difficult times. You're going to have things that work and things that don't work, and you have to have patience, and you have to let things sort of evolve. And 10 years later, I have the most amazing team there that runs an operation that is world class, and that I had very little to do with when I think of it, but they represent me in such an amazing way, and I'm just so lucky to be able to do that. And it's taught me so much about how I can impact. And so I'm lucky. I just this year am working now with Morrison Healthcare at the Cleveland Clinic, and I am excited for that based on the experience that I've had at the art museum, that I have such a challenge that I want to add such joy and passion and excitement to hospital healthcare food service. And so it's something that I have this excitement for that, because I know through my experience in the past that though things are challenging, that I have sort of a roadmap of how to get there. And I just feel lucky that I've had so many experiences that have gotten me to where I am today, to enjoy doing that more, if that makes sense.
Well, and all the patients at the Cleveland Clinic will appreciate that.
Well, hopefully all. I would say that all might be a little too much. I'm sure that all won't.
Okay.
But I certainly hope to have an impact.
Good.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And I love the team there already. So.
So,
and you did mention this recipe.
Yeah, so the recipe, so the kind of the thing we're going to be closing every show is, so a lot of people have limited time today, a lot of people in fast food and drive-thrus every day that I see, and you can make simple, affordable meals at home. So for the price of a meal for four, pick your favorite fast food restaurant. You can make it home in under $25 in under 30 minutes with just a few ingredients. It's not, and it gets back to what you were talking about earlier, when you start cooking things and the aromas and the smells. I mean, it's a positive experience, and the food's going to taste better.
Yes.
So what recipe would you like to share with us today?
So I would tell you that the one I'm going to give you is a meat-based recipe, but it could easily be done vegetarian or vegan. I love rice dishes, and so when I'm cooking for myself at home, one of my favorite things to do is make like a rice pilaf or of some kind, and I usually put a spice in it. So what I would say is I like basmati rice.
I do as well.
And I like sauteed onions. And so I would saute onions, and I would put I'd put turmeric, and I would put maybe a little chili. I love the yellow. I love turmeric because it's an anti-inflammatory. I love the yellow color it gives the rice. I also love a little chili for flavor. Maybe a little jalapeno, onion, garlic. Sweat that out. Add my rice, and I make like a pilaf with that. And so I cook that, and it's done. Then I take meat of some kind, so ground meat. So it could be lamb or beef or chicken or turkey or whatever, but I'll say today lamb because I just love more of that Middle Eastern flavor. So I would sear my lamb with salt and pepper. Just buy a pack, like a pound of ground lamb, and sear that so that it's nice and browned. Sear it on the other side, nice and browned, like as a patty, and then break it up into little pieces. Deglaze it with some chicken stock or water. Make sure you're seasoning it with salt and pepper, maybe even an herb that you could buy like thyme or sage or something like that. And then you just slowly cook that. And then I would add a vegetable like zucchini. And I love zucchini just either sauteed with olive oil, salt, and pepper. But I also just love it with a fresh herb. And then I think that makes a really great meal where you can have the rice and you have this ground lamb sort of curry, and then you have the zucchini, and it certainly is a cheap meal, and it goes a long way. I would also say you could add corn tortillas to it. You could make it a crepe. You could, you can use it in so many ways. You could, you can change it, to fit what you would want to do. You could do lettuce cups, you could do tacos, you could do, but that kind of meal just on its own like that is just a great family meal that I think kids love. They get a little bit of challenge from some of the spice, but it's also familiar enough because they're used to maybe some ground meat and some rice and things. So that's what I would go to.
And you could probably just substitute tofu if you don't want to use lamb or chicken or beef.
Yes, and I love like a tofu scramble with the same type of thing where you break up the tofu and you saute your onions and all that, make like this really great tofu mixture, and you don't miss the meat at all. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you. Thank you for
You're
spending
welcome.
the time here today. I had a great time talking to you as always, Doug.
Oh.
Smiling as always.
Yeah. Love doing it too.
Tell us where we can find you at Zhug and Amba or their websites if people want to.
So I do have a website. It's chefdouglaskatz.com. That you can certainly follow me, or find out what I'm doing through that. There's a link to all of our social media accounts, and that's where we really keep things updated. And daily we are sharing the restaurant Amba, the restaurant Zhug. The next restaurant we will have will certainly be posted there first, and so keeping in the loop what's happening. And if you're, certainly if you're at the Cleveland Clinic, if you're at the Art Museum, if you're at Zhug, if you're at Amba, if you're, I will be somewhere. I can't tell you I'll be there when you're there, but know that I'm always around, and you can always email me at my website, and hopefully I'll bust your table when you come to my restaurant too.
Well, thanks, Doug.
Sure.
Much appreciated. Again, great conversation today. Please follow us every week where you listen to podcasts. Eat Better Food Today. You can also email me at eatbetterfoodtoday@protonmail.com. Those will all be posted on the information on the podcast. So thanks, Doug.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Zach.